FM.
So here we have Matt Berry, current England national champion for the BC3s. He's just won the Super League a couple of weeks ago with SAS. How dare you, actually? Now 6 times Super League champions, 5 in a row. And then you're a Boccia England and Boccia UK athlete. So thank you very much for coming along, Matt.
No problem at all, Peter. It's good to join you.
So before we get to your current success and everything else, let's go back into early days before you went to Amon, because we should just say that me and you went to Amon together. You were older than me, obviously, but you were still part of for the school for some time. So what was it like growing up with the disability that you have?
Right, well, for those that don't know, I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which was diagnosed when I was 4 years old. So obviously, I don't really remember that. And up until the age of, 7 or 8, there were not a huge amount of, difficulties. Some difficulties getting off the floor, walking long distances. So my childhood, like early childhood, as you might call it, would be pretty standard. Nursery.
Did you do any stuff before Amon in your primary school?
From what I recall, there wasn't a whole lot of sport going on at primary school, and at that stage, my disability was I used a wheelchair, but everything was geared around. Apart from that, I was fairly a normal student, doing my SATs and my bits like that. So there wasn't really, I hadn't really got into sports at primary school, I would say.
And then you went on to what year did you join Amon, actually?
I joined Amon in 2007, I believe.
Okay, so I was only 2 years below you then. So at that point, did you have Nat to begin with, or was it Steve? Because I know Nat was a learning support assistant at some point.
I was under Steve, and he introduced me to all the sports, boccia, polybat, hockey, anything that was going on was introduced by Steve because he felt that there was no reason why I shouldn't be doing it.
And it was quite late to every lesson though, wasn't he, Steve?
Yeah. Yeah, he had a relaxed style, let's say, yes.
Yeah. Well, good memories. And so at that point, you interested did you know at that point Boccia was going to be your long sport career, or did you think about doing any other sports?
Well, at that point, I'd never heard of Boccia. So from the early days, it was very much, I don't know what Boccia is, so let's give it a go. And I think at that stage, because I was at school and combining lessons with sport, it was more of a social activity to do, at lunchtime with friends or on school trips, etc. So no, at that stage, I wouldn't have said that I knew it would be a career or something that I would necessarily take on for a long time.
And when did you think Boccia would be the main thing that you would do?
Well, that's quite a difficult question, Peter. I think it was, towards the end of school, I was, getting reasonably good and, attended national championships. And, well, I attended a national championship my first year at secondary school. So I knew at that stage that I was obviously quite good. But I think toward the end of school, it was, combining the university option and the sport that the Boccia was actually going well then. So.
And did you start on the CP sport with Boccia, and then Boccia came in?
Yes, when I started at school, it was CP sports. A lot of it was CP players. It was all, things down in Guildford mostly. and of course at Stoke Mandeville, which of course you'll remember. So it was originally CP, so it was very different to how it is now.
Very different. And your achievements, obviously you had so many, so I can't list them all in on a piece of paper. But we should mention you at this point you were in sixth form at Avon at this point when me, you, and Ben we were in a team together, weren't we? And we went on to nationals, and we went to regionals and nationals up in Sheffield for the finals, and we came second, didn't we?
Yes, I remember that well. It was a good tournament with you and Ben. It was interesting, some ups and downs, I think, but it was that was one of the first times that I think the school team had, really gone on and done quite well at a national teams event, which was nice, and obviously became second, which was a good achievement, I think. So that was, and I remember it well working with you and Ben, and you guys did really well. It was a good team in those days.
It was. And I remember actually you used your GCSE A-level maths at that point too, because I remember you were on the court for quite some time and the referee talking about, which ball's closer because of what score it was, and your maths was very, very good back then.
Yeah, I mean it's probably still not bad. I haven't used it much, but yes, that occasion for any of those listening that know it was, a bit of trigonometry to make the referee realise which one was nearer, and luckily for me, I was kind of lucky on that occasion that it was as I saw it, so that was fortunate. Yes.
And then you left Amon. What college did you? What university did you attend?
So I went to Portsmouth University and I did computer-aided product design, so an engineering degree, which obviously is quite different from a sports background. So that's kind of that's why I say it's difficult to know when Boccia was my main thing, because at that point, towards the end of school and sixth form and university, it was very much split. It was Boccia and engineering, essentially.
So what made you go down the engineering route?
Well, as you mentioned a moment ago, I like my maths, can always be the fan of physics. I'm quite a creative person, I like my science and my design and that kind of thing. So I think it just, from a school perspective, I'm not a particularly sort of English-based person or a languages person. So really that was it brought together all of my favourite subjects and the things that I was good at, I'd say.
And you're carried over, but so how did you manage to deal with schoolwork and university work and Boccia at the same time? How did you manage it all?
Well, it's a little bit of a juggle. You've got to, compromise a bit and maybe not do as much on each as you want. But at that time, the Boccia was good, but it wasn't as intense as it is now, say. So there wasn't that pressure. And I suppose, as you all know, a lot of Boccia things are at the weekend, and a lot of university stuff is in the week. So there is an area where you can find time for both, but it is where you've got to want to do both, I'd say.
And this is now under Boccia England. Boccia England came in around London 2012. And then you went. Did you ever do Heathcote Cup? Because I've always remember you in the BE Cup. I can't remember if you ever did the lower.
I went to the very first year at the Heathcote because I got knocked out of the BE Cup round by former GB player Jess Hunter. So, and I remember I had to go the long way round to get there, but that was an interesting Heathcote, along with Raf Young was in that Heathcote. So that was quite an interesting year, that one. Which must have been, you're talking around 2015, I suppose. Something like that.
And you progressed from there, and then you're now one of the best BC3s, I would say, in the whole of England.
Well, that's great, Peter. It's not to blow my own trumpet, but a current national champion. So in England at the moment, I'd say that I'm number one, but obviously that changes on a regular basis. So, but obviously that's good this year, certainly.
And so, did you manage to progress because you're in the you're in the England futures, or you're in the transition squad now, aren't you?
Yes, it's the transition now. It was, so the journey was back in the day. We had England Lions and England. So Lions is like the B team, and basically when I was in like maybe year 10 or 11, I got into the Lions team. So that was kind of an England B setup, and then actually before that there was a talent pathway that I went in for a year. Then moved into the England B team, and I was there for maybe 3 or 4 years. I think you may remember that there were trips to Russia that some of the England players went on in those days. So, which I believe was 2017. So that gives an idea of when I was in and around the England team to start with. So, and then obviously you moved into England around sort of 5-ish years ago, and then obviously now Boccia UK have this new transition program. For those that don't know, is basically a bridge between the home nations and the UK squad, which is an exciting opportunity and something new that UK haven't done before. So it's very exciting to be involved in that.
And it's nice to mix around the current Boccia UK squad as well, all the BC3s in that classification.
Yes, it's nice to be involved with those players that are maybe a little ahead of me, but very much, in and around. So it's a good opportunity for the UK to see what I can do, and for me to see what I can do. So it's quite an exciting time.
And how do you, are you in a job at the moment with the engineering degree? Or because I know you're doing the Boccia quite a lot of the time now. So.
Well, it's an interesting one. I work as a freelance design consultant. So it's sort of an on and off basis as to when that comes in. But obviously with the Boccia, it's difficult to have too much time available. So, it's something that is there occasionally that can come into play if I need it to. But obviously with the Boccia commitments, there isn't a lot of time for that.
We should mention that before, when you were at school, you had various ramp assistants throughout your time. When did your mum, Sue, become your ramp assistant?
My mum, she took over, well, essentially when I left school, because of course, at school, in the early days, it was very much, Helen and Steve and Nat and, various other LSAs and people that, learning support assistants, I should say, that chipped in. And then when it became that I was doing well, obviously, Steve then stepped in. But then obviously when I left school, that kind of obviously then I went out of the kind of school systems, and that's when Mum took over and started ramping from that point. So essentially, what are we talking about 8 years ago, around that sort of time?
And she's been there since.
Yes, still doing it today, indeed.
Still doing it today, yes. Have you had any arguments or any bust ups since? any, or was it just you just telling them what to do?
It's a good working relationship. It's always, to BC3, it's important that your assistant is, working with you, because obviously that, is different in the BC3 game. That person is there to, do a lot of carry out a lot of the requests, essentially. When you're a thrower like yourself, it's very much you're in charge of everything, so you know what you're doing. So but with the BC3, it's a bit of teamwork.
And I remember actually at one point you did have a postal assistant, and they were doing it for a little while as well, weren't they? But
yes,
essentially,
it's had a couple of people, do some to take on some of the work, but it's difficult to find somebody permanent. That's the thing, because the commitments now for 4 or 5 years have been, you're talking around 15 weekends a year, which is, somebody's time that they won't have with their family or children is, difficult for those people. But, as you know, a lot of these players do have PAs that are their amp assistants. Will Arnott is a good example. So it can be done. It's just very tricky to get that person.
And you actually, we should mention, when did you join SAS?
Oh, blimey, now SAS. I joined that. It must have been about 7 years ago, let's say. So around 2014, something like that. So 7, 8, 9 years ago, that kind of thing.
And was there many people back then? Because I remember when I joined, it was about 20 of you at that point. So
yeah, it's evolved a little bit. I remember you being there. There were large numbers back in the day. I think there were sort of 3 or 4 that started it, and then when I joined, there was probably about 10 of us, I suppose, maybe 8 or 10. I think it was a small group, focused on the team, and obviously that was a good club to be in, and it evolved to being bigger. Like when you came along, so that is good as well, giving more players a chance. So yeah, that was yeah.
And then at that point, all in the Super League. So presumably you got out of National League very, very quickly.
Well, we SAS were one of the teams that started the league, so it didn't exist as a league until 8 or 9 years ago. In which point SAS, along with Paul's Place, I believe, were the founding team. So, I mean, I wasn't part of the team then. It was very much C and Derek and David Hill and Warren Dyer and Emma Harris. So, I think I mentioned everyone, hopefully. So it was, but they were the founding members. So there was no National League at that time. So, but had there been a National League, of course, we'd have gone into that and tried to qualify.
Yeah. Well, I'm just surprised you remember all of that. So.
Well, I wasn't there, but I've heard stories about it, so it's kind of a sort of a history lesson.
Got you. And then, of course, I mentioned down here 5 times in a row you won Super League, and of course, you won again a couple of weeks ago. Congratulations, by the way.
Yes, well, thank you. That's very gracious of you, Peter. Done very well played to solo in the final. It was a good effort.
Yeah, it was a very, very good effort indeed. So, you started your own club, essentially. Not SS, I should say, more of a training environment sort of thing. You started the SEB.
Yes, well,
It's Southern Elite, but I mean, I don't know what it's called. What is it?
Yes, that's correct. You got it correct. That's what it's called. It's so basically, during COVID, a lot of boccia stopped, and it was quite slow to start going again. And a lot of clubs and boccia themselves, had to get through certain safety measures and very slow return. So I thought, well, there's a gap here. A lot of the top players really need to get on court because they're ready. So that's essentially why I set up the club. And, a lot of the people that were SAS members came across because there's some top players there and they were struggling with the facilities. So it's kind of a mixture of, players need somewhere to go and it would be good to have an elite area.
And it's just been 2 years old now.
Yes, we're going 2 years now. It's I'm very pleased with that. It's good. It's a small group, but it's a hard-working group, and everybody there is either very good or very talented. So it's it's a lovely mixture of talent and experience.
And it's across 5 or 6 classifications as well. So a nice mixture of.
I have no problem with classifications. BC3, 6, 7. To me, if they're going to come along and work hard and at a good level, then that's for me. I don't mind if these players are not BC1, 2, 3, 4. it's about the work ethic and the desire to be there.
And this year, you joined the True Athlete program project that I was under last year. You're on this year. You're a mentor, aren't you?
Yes, so I'm mentoring that, which is really good to work with young aspiring athletes in a different way. And of course, it's although it's not directly linked to my career, it's nice to get that experience to kind of add to everything. Yeah.
We should mention that it's a sort of pathway for young athletes to progress and to gain experience in the psychological part of the sport, isn't it?
Basically. Yeah, so it's more around the actual the holistic approach to well-being and confidence, and how you deal with emotions on and off court. So it's like I say, it's a little bit different from just the normal Boccia career, but that's quite nice to be involved in something slightly different.
Yeah. Now, as I said, I know you're national champion for the BC3. And so what's the future looking like for you? Obviously, you're a transition program now. I mean, are you hoping, probably not Paris, but are you hoping to go towards LA 2028? What's the idea for you?
It's very much how far I can go. It's not got an end. It's not got a goal. It's more just, can I keep pushing, keep going to this, and being in the transition program gives me the opportunity to play for UK and show them what I can do. So it's how far can I go? And LA, I mean, Paris is sewn up. That's really kind of sewn up. But LA or World Championships, it's on the radar, but it's a long way to going. But I'm not saying it's not on or on. It's just maybe. Who knows?
It's the progress that show to the person to hopefully progress further.
Yeah, it's very dependent on what they think, what I think. Yeah. It's not an easy one to answer. I mean, England, it's quite simple. The tournaments, the structure. But with UK, it's a new area, so it's learning where I am in that, and if I can go further up it.
Certain times, didn't you recently go on to a challenger recently?
UK have put on several challenges over the last 2 or 3 years, and because the most recent one that I won with all the GB players there, so it's and I've already taken part in an international challenger as well, and I was the only non-ranked player attending that tournament and came fourth. But it's that consistency is the key at this level. It's in England, if you keep your level decent, you're going to do well. In the UK, your level's got to be higher. It's got to be 8, 9 out of 10 every time. So it's that consistency to progress, essentially.
And that's sort of the consistency, because I keep seeing you on Facebook, you and your mum, quite consistently post with your successes. So I'm like, oh, well done, Matt. And they never post, well done, Matt. And never post, well done, Matt. So you always seem to keep winning at every tournament you go to at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good habit to have, and it's, that's the consistency I want to show. And obviously that is in England, which is, with the level at UK is, it's up a big step. So there are a lot of very good players in England. It's, we have a very strong BC3 group. It's very good, but it's that next up level. It's another challenge. It's playing players on a top level every single match, which obviously in England isn't necessarily the case. Although, like I said, we have a lot of strong players, so it's not, we have a lot of quality here, but it's international. I mean, I know you've recently been to Germany. It's very different because the language barrier, to competing with people that you don't know, and I mean you'll know all about that. So it's different to England, let's say.
Definitely. And that's everything. So thank you very much. We managed to throw your whole career in like half an hour or something.
Well, I think I don't think people want to listen to me droning on for too long. I think it's good to get an overview, and hopefully, my aim at the moment, alongside the UK aspirations, is that I want to get people playing boccia, because I feel like at schools and things like that is falling away, and I think we need new players, especially under 20 in all the categories. So it's important to me to go around and try and demo boccia and promote it where I can. So, and obviously you're doing this podcast, which is really good, because that gets that out there a bit more in a different way.
And of course, a female fighter recently put in as well.
Yeah, it adds a dimension. It's difficult to achieve in this country because we don't have that many female athletes, but abroad it's certainly a big thing. So, it's encouraging the young people to play, but also females, come and play, because you've got your own category. There's room for players. So, especially if you're a young lady or young girl, come and have a go.
And hopefully people that might want to do that. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much for coming on, Matt.
No problem at all, Peter. It's been good to chat to you, and I hope you carry on having success with your podcasts and your radio. So yeah, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Voice. Let's go. Voice FM.